Now, when it comes to one of the worst industry plants we have ever seen in hip-hop, in Ian, well now if you are ready to see how one of the genre's biggest vultures' career is officially over, and well, you know, he has had one of the most embarrassing fall-offs and exits from the genre that he tried to cosplay in, well, that we have ever seen, and you could definitely say that Tyler, the Creator, has never been more right. Well, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and now really, as we are seeing the end to one of the most annoying people that we have ever seen exist within the rap world. Make sure to leave a like so everybody can see this and see how when it comes to all of the conversations people are having about rap right now and no songs being in the top 40, well, people saying that hip-hop is cooked. Well, listen, no matter what people want to say, in a year for the genre and in an era where we have had a lot of great rappers release great albums, great songs, and give us great moments, and they have got their flowers for it, the more you look into that top 40 stat, you realize one of the big reasons why that looks like it does. Well, it's because for the grifters, the losers, and the industry plants, just like Ian, well, what they have done has stopped working. And now for Ian specifically, the reason why his career is over and the reason why we can finally say, well, that the Ian experiment has failed, ultimately comes down to the fact now with his first project that he has put out since 2024, and you know, after all of the buzz and hype they were trying to force up, and he was with a whole album trailer, which teased the idea that he was switching country, which even just with that, seeing the fall off he has, it only feels so much more deserving considering how he was mocking the typical culture vulture career path, despite clearly being one? Well, overall now with this new Ian record which he dropped, which is called 2005, well, you probably didn't even know it dropped because with it selling less than 8K first week, well, clearly most people didn't hear the project or even know that it existed. And making things even worse for that, the project didn't reach the Billboard 200, which making things even worse when you consider that, well, his last two projects did. And so just with this, seeing where the conversation around Ian really is, and you know, it's funny to me, Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia just hit its year anniversary and in his bed on the charts now for a full year and counting. And well, at the same time as that, Ian has failed to chart totally. Well, overall, what is very significant about this and what I really think is important from seeing Ian just fail the way he did is that if you look around in rap right now and you see the typical superstars who continue to run things and just see the general players that we have come to expect as mainstays in hip-hop, well, one clear difference is now pretty much since the streaming era and especially in the late 2010s, well, you know, you always had your Kendricks, your Drakes, your Coles, and everybody else who was operating in this genre, at the same time as all of the best and worst rappers who occupied two different sides of hip-hop, there was this weird middle of just these kind of industry plant rappers who seemed to come out of nowhere, rise to the top, be really successful, have their projects do incredible numbers despite them being pretty bad, and you know, it just felt like they were trying to test us or we were in some sort of an experiment when we would see people like a Lil Pump, or don't even get me started, but Lil Xan, and then you know, even later if we go back to the early 2020s, even somebody like Ice Spice at one point who it seemed like no matter what, she could not fail despite her copying and pasting the same song over and over again. And really, when we look at this lineage of gimmicky and industry plant rappers, Ian was pretty much put in place to be the next one to take this throne, I guess we're gonna call it. And now just seeing him enter the rap game, make the noise that he did, but not actually be able to sustain it into any real stardom, and well, now he is not even reaching the charts with his projects. Well, what we can see and what we can say is honestly that at least for now, and I hope I'm not jinxing it, the industry plant era in rap is over. And for whatever else you want to say about the state of the genre, at the very least, we're not seeing these cosplayers, grifters, and you know, almost comedians it feels like with just how lackadaisical they walk into hip-hop acting. will just operate in the genre and get way too comfortable as they rise to the top in terms of the success that they get on the charts and the numbers that they pull all together. And really, if we look further, the reason why this most likely is because the music industry and the record labels as a whole, well, they have given up on trying to push these gimmicky artists who do these numbers, and they are no longer making sure that they are in the right places to annoy all of us, well, at every single chance they can get. But now you know why the labels have stopped supporting something, which if you don't, it's for the reasons that the labels would stop supporting anything, which you may have guessed it, but it's that they were no longer getting a return from this, and just in terms of trying to prop these artists up, which I mean, look at somebody like Ice Spice, for example. You see how much they had to put into her inorganic rise, well, to try and get her to certain places. Overall, when you try to rig this system, it takes a lot more effort, well, than if a traditional artist was making noise the right way, and then you just do a little to push them to the next level. And you know, just to really see that the industry is not pushing these gimmicky and industry plant rappers. That's really huge. And now, while definitely one of the other reasons for this is because a lot of the labels have had major layoffs, their staffs are really like a fraction of what they were, and just overall in general in the industry, a lot of artists are not getting the support that they once did. Still, when you see how many artists have been able to find success this year, and especially in hip-hop, whether it's a Kendrick Lamar or a Playboi Carti, a Tyler the Creator, a Clips, and you know, there are a lot of other names who have been able to do big numbers, make big moments, and make a big impact. Well, overall, what you see, and I think this is very important to note with the whole conversation we were having about hip-hop not being in the top 40 last week, is that we are in an era, and I mean, you could take this however you feel about it, that, well, to be successful, you have to be your own entity who is really creating premier art and then representing yourself in a way where you are able to captivate audiences and really garner the attention that you need to be a big star in the music industry. And to me, when we just look at this whole problem that's been going on recently, that's really the disconnect with just everything we have been seeing as a whole, which again, if we break it down, it all does just come back to the fact that they are no longer pushing buttons on these artists who are just all about the gimmicks and not about the actual love of the craft. And honestly, when we just look at everything going on in hip-hop from that lens, I can't say I'm too mad about this, because to not have to see an annoying cosplaying grifter culture vulture, well, just mocking the very essence of rap within some of the most disrespectful and forced ways that we have ever seen, while also making some of the most lame, generic, and boring music we have ever seen, well, again, to me, I just don't really see what the bad thing is here altogether. Well, honestly, this is a really good thing, because if you're telling me now that Ian and the failure of the Ian experiment is really now the last try that the industry gave to creating a successful industry plant, that's great. And I just have to say, while there are a lot of other external factors from both the label and music industry side to just what listeners want in general that are responsible for this downfall, I just gotta say it again. Tyler the Creator told us this was coming, and he called it out. And I really do feel like when we look back in this recent era of hip-hop in like the last 2 or 3 years or so, that interview that Tyler the Creator did with Maverick Carter, where he just finally became one of the first rappers, it feels like, in years to just speak out on some of the most ridiculous things that hip-hop culture started to produce. Well, that does feel like a canon event that has definitely just pushed the ball rolling on a lot of these things, because at least in terms of if we track all the numbers and all the success that these industry plant artists used to have and see where they are at now, it does feel like around the time that Tyler said that, and you know, he even dropped Chromacopia not too longer after that, which was one of the most successful rap albums we have seen in years, and it got to the point it did by being the very opposite thing of what he called out. Well, overall, it does just feel like Tyler helped this reset come a lot faster and end Ian's career way sooner than it would have ever had in past eras. And so all I just gotta say is now that Ian is flopping, he can't even hit the charts, and you know, if he is already this irrelevant after never really getting to the top, like a lot of his industry plant peers did before him, well, it's really safe to say that the Ian experiment isn't just over now. But I wouldn't be surprised if we never see him make music again, because as at the end of the day, he was only in this thing For the most superficial, horrible, and embarrassing reasons? Well, just like a lot of the rappers we are seeing right now in the almost identity crisis they are having in hip-hop, well, you know, what we are finding out is that when the numbers really dry up and these guys are no longer getting the clout that they expected to be a rapper, and then, you know, try to jump off into some other ridiculous gimmicky thing, and they were only using hip-hop as a stepping stone of some sort, well, overall, we are finding out who really loves this thing and who is a grifter. And I mean, for Ian, it's very clear now with the evident fall off that we are going to see that in full in the near future as it's all over. And so yeah, that's all I got today. Let me know your thoughts on Ian just pretty much falling into irrelevancy and his career being all but over now. And what do you think about what we discussed here with the industry plants in hip hop and honestly just the era of them completely falling apart in terms of having these annoying rappers who you just couldn't escape who were doing these huge numbers, which again, if we really look at the lineage of them, Ian seems like he was the one who finally failed hard enough that, well, we're never going to have to deal with them again, or at the very least, for a very long time to come. Now listen, if you made it to this point in the video, I can't thank you enough. Be sure to leave a like if you haven't already. It really does help me out, and be sure to subscribe also. I really can't thank you enough if you do. Well, there's a lot of great stuff going on in hip-hop coming very soon, so really make sure to stick around, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And now, if you want to see how right alongside this and right before it, well, there's a lot of stuff going on with Drake and him potentially being uncovered as the biggest industry plant of all time, and well, within this, we may have just found out something in a new lawsuit that has come out that is exposing to us how much the industry really supported Drake and just gave him an unfair advantage for his entire career. Well, you're not going to want to miss this one, so check out the suggested video.